Right at the moment now, G20 is talking about climate change, COP30 in Brazil is talking about it, and the IPCC has brought out another report. That slide just summarizes, you don't have to listen to them, just look at that slide, that's exactly what they're talking about. The notion that humans are changing the climate at a dangerous rate is totally wrong, not just exaggerated or slightly mistaken, it's totally wrong, it's complete nonsense. It's a false belief and it's corrupted science because of money making and because of ideology. Okay, here are the sure signs of anti-science. If you hear this, if you hear denialist, that means the speaker knows nothing about climate science. And if you hear the phrase 97% of scientists say, or you hear the science is settled, the speaker doesn't understand how science works at all. The number one tactics of the climate, and I found this over and over again, is to shut you down. They don't want to win the debate, they want to stop the debate. It's such utter nonsense that if you begin discussing it seriously, it just falls apart. So they want to make sure there's no discussion. They won't allow journals to publish you, they'll ban you, they'll stop your funding, get you fired, mock you, vilify you. I've had experience with this, and all the good climate scientists in the world have had too much experience with this. Is the key question, you probably can't read all of this, so I'll speak to them. Is the climate changing? Of course it's changing, it changes all the time. The slight warming of the last 150 years, is it any different from previous natural warming periods? No, nothing at all. Nothing unusual about it at all. Has mankind increased carbon dioxide in the air? Yes, he certainly has. He's increased it considerably, and it's done this by burning fossil fuels. Any evidence to suggest that mankind is changing the climate in a dangerous way? No. And this includes extreme weather events, rising ocean polar ice cap, on and on and on. Man is having no effect on these. Will rising carbon dioxide have any other effect? It certainly will, and is doing so. A wonderful effect. Carbon dioxide has been far too low for a long time. We've pushed it up and we can see the benefits already. Plant growth is going up, food crops are getting better and better, and plants are growing places that they couldn't grow before. So there's nothing to worry about that. There's nothing to worry about man-made climate change, because it doesn't exist. You must always, worry about natural climate change, which has happened down the ages, and sometimes it's been absolutely catastrophic. So here, this book is about the global crisis caused by terrible climate. 17th century. In the 17th century, it was a century of wars, revolutions, peculiar superstitions such as witch burning, famines, etc. And this was caused by the cold weather of that time. Cold weather is much more dangerous than warm weather. Here are my own qualifications. I've got 6 years of studying thermodynamics, heat transfer, fluid mechanics. If you don't understand these, you can't understand climate science. You don't have formal qualifications, but you have to understand them. And most of the climate alarms, if not all, don't understand them at all. Carbon dioxide is not a pollutant. It's a wonderful, harmless natural gas. We depend on it. If you rise CO2 levels in the air, it will have little or no effect on the climate, I believe no, to make plants grow better. And horticulture pump CO2 into greenhouses to make plants grow better. Right now, this is the thing, people say, oh, look how high the levels are. They're extremely low in the life of the planet, far below optimum, which is out of about 1500 ppm. They're now about 480 ppm. It's a weak greenhouse gas, I've said this before, with only one significant band, and that's already saturated at peak. So if you add more CO2, it will have a small effect. It is a greenhouse gas. Without it, if there wasn't any CO2 at all in the air, Earth would be slightly cooler than it is now. So it's a good thing that it's there. Saturated, adding more will have no effect. And this is exactly what we see. Here is the world greening. This is the world's greening from 1982 to 2015. And it's these regions here that are most interest to me. This is the Sahara Desert. This region around here is the Sahel. It's green. Plants are growing there where they've never grown before. The world is becoming better and better because of carbon dioxide. And there's two reasons for that. First of all, it's the food of plants. So the more CO2, the better they grow. Other one, maybe as important, plants have got little holes under their leaves called stomata. They're open leaves to take in carbon dioxide. Trouble is that also releases water vapor, so plants lose water that way. But now they don't have to be open so often, so long. They're open for shorter time, so this saves water. So they're now growing in arid regions. Here is an extremely important graph. There's various shapes of it, but it's always the same trend. This is 600 million years ago when multi-cell life began. This black level, this black line is carbon dioxide, and the blue is global temperatures. You can see that they've got completely different trends. This here, temperature is normal, except for these dips here. Notice they're evenly spaced. I can give an explanation for that afterwards, not time now. Here, this is the golden age of life on Earth, when carbon dioxide was about 4,000 ppm. It's now 400, and people are saying how high it is. It went down, down, down for reasons I can explain, then it went up again. I'll just explain this one here, which is of huge concern. It went down, 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 kept going down. If it had gone much lower, it would have wiped out most plants on Earth. What caused it to go down, and the reason, there's the reason. You see these cliffs here, they're made of calcium carbonate. What happens is that shell-forming marine organisms, those with shells and so forth, when they're growing, they take in carbon dioxide from the air dissolved in the water, and they turn it into chalk and marble and lime to form their shells. When they die, that carbon isn't released into the air. The rest of the carbon in the body says that is not. So it's one way taking carbon down, 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 down. We were heading for catastrophe about 10 million years ago, absolute catastrophe. This is during the ice ages, I'll explain later. Basically from about 500,000 years ago, we had this period of ice ages where we went up and down, carbon dioxide matching temperatures. First came temperatures, and then came carbon dioxide. For the simple reason, when the oceans cool, they absorb carbon dioxide, and when they warm, they release it. There's a pause of several centuries. That's what you're seeing now. But notice this. Most plants on Earth die below 150. We were at 180 there. Go much lower and there would have been a mass extinction, worse than the one that wiped out the dinosaurs. Here's a look at temperatures in the northern hemisphere based on Greenland's ice cores, going back over the last 10,000 years or so. We're about there now in temperatures. There's the medieval warm period before the. Most of the time before now, in the last 2,000 years, was warmer than now. Warmer than now. This is over the last 2,000 years, since the beginning of the time of Christ. And you can see the same pattern. There's the medieval warm period when it's warmer than now. And there's the only cold period, the Little Ice Age. This terrible period of cold. The medieval warm period, about those dates, the temperatures higher than now, while carbon dioxide was lower than now. It was the golden age of agriculture. It changed the history of Europe. There was good health. There was a Viking colony in Greenland. There was vineyards in the north of England. And that's a Viking house built during this time when the Vikings occupied Greenland. It had to be abandoned because temperatures dropped into the Little Ice Age. The Little Ice Age, the lowest temperatures of the last 2,000 years, about those dates. The Vikings abandoned Greenland, worst weather storm, far worse than we know now, storms, floods, droughts, etc. Poor crops, bad health, famines, malaria decimated Europe. It's mentioned 6 times in Shakespeare's plays. He's living right in the middle of it. There's witch burning. People blame the bad weather on witches. Nowadays we blame them on carbon dioxide. And here is a frost fear. This is on the River Thames, which is completely frozen over. They had fires and that on there. Both of these things have been confirmed worldwide. It only happened in Northern Europe, nonsense. It happened everywhere. There's over 1,000 studies of it. The cold is more dangerous than the warm. Every time there's a cold spell in England, a lot more people die than in a hot spell. We evolved in East Kenya, quite near the equator. They think about 300,000 years ago, but probably before that. Now, if you want to see, well, what was the climate like then when we evolved there? We'll go there. It hasn't changed. It's the same. It would be a good thing if CO2 was bringing warmer weather, but it isn't. And here's, you've got a test tube with dry air in it. And you increase the CO2, and you see how much infrared it absorbs. And as the concentration goes up, it absorbs a lot, till it gets to about here. That's about 150 parts per million, and then it levels off a very small increase. The test of any theory, there is only one test. Does it work? That's it. You have a beautiful theory. If it doesn't work, the theory is wrong. Einstein knew that well. He developed this beautiful theory, which Garth can explain better than me, of general relativity. Beautiful theory, lovely to look at. And he said, don't believe this until it passes tests. So in 1919, it passed the test, the bending of light past the sun, and his prediction was exactly right. Above 150 ppm, CO2 has never been seen to drive global temperature. So if you have a lovely theory explaining that it will, the theory is wrong. It doesn't. Right now, I said, well, it should, in the simple theory, rising set a little bit of increase. In fact, there's none. What's the theoretical explanation for this? This comes from Professor William Happer, one of the world's most foremost physicists. And this is what he found by his theory. This line here, the blue line, if you're looking out in space and you look in the spectrum of the Earth's radiation, it will look like something like this. But that isn't what you see. What you see is the black line. And that's because of greenhouse gases, which are absorbing some of this IR. What he says is, if you had no carbon dioxide at all, this bit wouldn't be absorbed. That'd be the line there. This is what is actually happening now. Now he says the red is what would happen if you double CO2. There's the red there. It's almost the same. And for practical purposes, it is the same. And this explains why, by the way, the theory is too complicated for me. It has no effect. What does cause, well, we've seen temperatures do certainly go up and down with sometimes catastrophic effects. And the answer is clouds. Low clouds, the one when you're in an aeroplane, you look down, cumulus clouds, those ones cause cooling. They cause net cooling. If there's no clouds, you have warming. If you have lots of clouds, you have cooling. Well, what makes the clouds increase and decrease? It's variations in the sun. Now, I must say this over and again. It's not total energy coming out of the sun. It's not variations in the total solar radiation, which all of the alarmists, that's the only one they look at. It changes in electromagnetic activity. Sunspots give a measure of such activity. Galileo in 1609 made a telescope that could see sunspots. So people have been measuring them ever since. Clouds require four things: humidity, temperature, pressure, and nucleation size. I don't know if anyone's worked in a cloud chamber at a university physics department. You have this chamber full of humid air, the right temperature and pressure, but there's no mist forming. You inject some dust into it, instantly there's cloud. Cosmic rays enter the atmosphere. These are rays from outside our solar system, and they cause nuclear reactions that lead to nucleation sites. Electromagnetic activity from the sun repels these rays. It stops them reaching the Earth's atmosphere. And so you have fewer nucleation sites and fewer clouds, so you have warming. The more active the sun, the more warming you've got. The less active, the more cooling. Been a close correlation between the two, very close. During the Little Ice Age, time of cooling, there was very low solar activity, very low. Galileo and so we've been looking at them since then. Some astronomer in the 17th century noticed that when sunspots fell, food prices went up, and this is because the crops failed because of the cold, and so food prices went up. The medieval warm period had a lot of solar activity, and so does the present time. It's called the present warm period. There's been no increase in extreme weather in the last 50 years, and no reason why. Why should there be? Why should increased carbon dioxide cause floods and droughts? Often simultaneously, these people say, well, water goes up and up and up, therefore you have more droughts. Hurricanes, floods, droughts, all of them, you see tables of them, records of them, over 100 years or more. They're showing no trend, some of them a slight trend down. Sea level for the last 100 years has been rising very steadily, about that much, about 3 millimetres a year. It's been steady now for at least 100 years. It's not increasing. And it's almost certainly just a recovery from the cold times of the past. It takes ice a long, long time to melt. It's difficult to melt ice. My prediction is by the year 2100, it'll rise. I think that's 9 inches. That's how much it'll rise. The Antarctic ice has hardly changed. 1979 began measuring by satellite. So it had a very good measure of the temperatures then and the extent of the ice. It's hardly changed at all. I think temperatures have gone down slightly, but it's not significant. The Arctic, in last years, it has gone down a little bit. It seems to be recovering now, but it's still greater than it was in the 30s. In other words, nothing alarming at all. Oh, there's another thing. Do you realise there might be open water at the North Pole itself? There might be open water. Well, there's often open water at the North Pole. This is the Nautilus. This is at the North Pole in 1959. Open water. Here's a very, very important thing to notice. Climate change is natural, but it only affects high latitude, 30 degrees and more. So I tried to blow up the world. I didn't do a very good job. But between 30 north and 30 south out there, the climate doesn't change. It hasn't changed during the ice ages, hasn't changed in hundreds of years, it stays the same. It's only above 30 of the high latitudes that you see climate change. And the higher the latitude, the bigger the change too. And the equator barely changed, even during the ice ages. So Africa, which straddles the equator, is the least affected by climate change. All the things we're most vulnerable, we're the least vulnerable. You hear on and on these climate things. South Africa's warming twice as fast as normal. Every country on earth is warming twice as fast as the average, according to these people. How did this begin, this hysteria? There's two things people in the West are desperate for. Funding. They want money for research and scientific job. There's a desperate shortage of it. Speak to any university department. And the second, they long for catastrophe. Humans seem to long, all down the ages, they're longing for catastrophe. In Jesus' time, the world was going to end, and so on and so on and so on. But the catastrophe they really want is one where we can blame us. It's all our fault. Because of our sins, there's going to be a catastrophe. So climate alarm was perfect. They could blame industry, commercialization, capitalism, and so forth for it. And they could get lots of funding, and they could pose as environmental warriors, saviors of the planet. Couldn't be better. Here are the two graphs that started really. These two, they're both true. There's one graph, look, CO2 has increased since the 19th century. It's true, it has. And look, there's been a slight increase in temperature. It's true. That's it. That's the whole basis of it. Therefore, the one caused the other, which as I've shown is just not true. This happened for a short period. Other periods, they go completely different directions. Of course, they loved it. There you are, rising CO2 is causing rising temperatures. It can rise higher and higher until we fry, and then add melting poles, hurricane, anything else you can imagine. As I've shown it, there's two graphs. They're interesting, but they don't tell you anything about climate, long-term climate at all. I've noticed it over and over again in debates with these people when they want to debate. They don't want you to look further back than that. That's it. Don't go further back than that, because there it meets what we want. Climate alarms prove the greatest gravy train in history. We speak about the money that the oil companies are putting into that. It's a drop in the ocean compared to the enormous amounts of money governments, us, are putting into promoting climate change. The more you scare the public and the politicians, the more money you make. As you can see with all of their conferences, hysteria brings the most money of all. And the people are good at hysteria, ignorant people. So climate alarm, it encourages ignorance. Okay, I'm going to give the prime examples of some of their nonsense. IPCC is not a scientific body, it's a propaganda advocacy group. and his aim is to spread climate fear. That brings in the money. It suffered scandal after scandal. By the way, there are some good scientists reporting to it. There are some good scientists. And they give it genuine science and it ignores it. Okay, here's the classic of the nonsense. I've shown you the medieval warm prenatal ice age. In the 2001 report of IPCC, the following nonsense was repeated 6 times. It was broadcast around the world. This rubbish. The hockey stick. By the way, it's called a hockey stick because this is like the blade of an ice hockey stick, the handle, and this is the blade. Temperature pretty well steady until night, and then suddenly shooting all up like that. It's absolute fraudulent nonsense. Okay, there's the science. This they knew beforehand. Hundreds of studies did this. And then suddenly swapped over to this one based on one bad graph. I could go into this in great detail. The bad thing about it was they used tree ring widths to measure part climate, which is terribly inaccurate. They assume that rings widen the temperatures. They don't always. Sometimes they do quite the opposite. The same ring, you drill into about a pencil thickness, a hole into the tree that side, then you measure the rings. They found some of the trees, if you measure the rings from the other side, they were completely different. So the one side of the tree give you global warming, the other side global cooling. So obviously you collect the ones that give you global warming. That's what you want. They use the worst type of trees, bristle cones, and the strip bark ones, which are useless for that, they use those ones. The data series showed no trend at all when you put all their data series, no trend at all. So the resorted to principal component analysis, which Garth will understand, but I don't. You look for a certain pattern in some of the things and use that. It's okay. But they did it badly in a blatantly fraudulent way that they never confessed to and won't allow you to see. There you've got Obama. He's the one 97% of scientists say. Just proving how little he knows about science itself. Trump actually did get it right, but he's also ignorant, and he's too damn lazy. He just said, oh, it's a scam. He said, yes. Explains to why it's a scam. He does it because he doesn't understand. Working for him, he had William Papper, one of the world's greatest physicists, who could have told me exactly why. In fact, he should have let him speak to the public. This Paris Accord seeks to rise in temperature to 1.5 degrees below that of the pre-industrial era. But it doesn't tell you what it means by these eras. Well, I'll tell you. You could say the industrial era began with 1700, say. This guy invented the steam engine just before that. Civilization began about 9000 BC, something like that, with farming. So you can say the post-industrial era ran from 9000 to 1700. Well, there it is. I think I'm going to start a bit too soon. This area there in the red is the post-industrial. We're about here now. So for most of this period, temperatures were higher than now. So we're asking the temperatures now should not exceed 1.5 higher than now, but they're already lower than now. So this thing is complete nonsense. You know, when you look at, you want to see what's happening, look at the real world, don't look at these useless models. The Earth's climate is far too complicated to model. It can't be done. It just can't be done. So most of these models are little more than guesses. There's a powerful vested interest in predicting, must predict disaster. So if you had a model that didn't predict disaster, you lose your job. The past predictions have been completely wrong. Here are the models now. This is from 1975. These lines here show you the temperatures they were predicting. Now, all of these, very learned ones, very complicated, impressive computer programs. And this, in satellites and balloons, show you what actually happened. They were all wildly wrong, all predicting far more warming than happened. My prediction for 2100, not based on models, just based on past trends over millions of years, really. By 2100, global temperatures will either be about 0.5 degree warmer than now, or about 0.5 degrees cooler than now. Big disappointment. But I could best it. I won't be around to see if I'm right. Just another thing, the Climate Gate emails at the University of East Anglia. These are the people working for the IPCC, these scientists. Some unknown person leaked out the emails that they were sending to each other, these top scientists. They showed these scientists hiding or deleting data, manipulating the reports to get the right results, scheming to corrupt the peer review process to make sure scientific journals only publish the views they agree with, and above all, plotting to silence, ostracize, vilify any scientist who dares to oppose them, deny this. In other words, corrupting the whole scientific process. I've just completed Mike's trick, Mike plans of adding in trick of adding in, he faked the graph to make it look like there's a decline. If I hear there's a Freedom of Information Act now, I think I'll delete the file rather than send it to anyone, and so on and so on. 90% of scientists say, this is based on some ridiculous survey by some person called John Cook. What he did was he got his researchers just to skim through a huge number of scientific papers, just skim through the abstract. If it says anything about greenhouse gases, yes, they're part of the 97% who said climate alarm is real. Now, I've said greenhouse gases are real, so I'd be one of them. So, of those, 0.5% said it was dangerous. Scientific theories can never be proven right, they can only be proven wrong. Find all of those top guys, prove me wrong. You can't prove me right, you can only prove me wrong. So the theories that stand are the ones that haven't been proved wrong. By contrast, this guy's head of the top climate scientists, some scientists asked him for data. Why should I give them to you when your aim is to try and find something wrong with it? Well, of course that's the aim. Aim of science is to try and find something wrong with current theories. You know, the circus is coming to town. That was my slide for COP17. That rubbish, when is it going to end? I've got no idea, so I ended on a sad note. And now it's happening in Brazil, and the signs of hope. There's still the old rubbish, Al Gore talking rubbish as usual. But these guys just haven't bothered to attend. And around the world, the signs that the hysteria is beginning to fade. The climate is healthy, and the alternatives, solar and wind for grid electricity, are expensive disaster. So, here's hoping. Thank you.